Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm so excited. I have today's guest is Loren Lockman. Loren, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Paul. Good to see you.
All right. Well, I'm going to interview Loren. I have interviewed him before. I'll put that link below. So, Loren, briefly tell everybody about yourself, and then we'll get more into what you do and who you are.
Okay. Well, I guess what's relevant for your show is that the day after Thanksgiving, I celebrated 34 years living on a fruit-based raw vegan diet. For 29 years, I ran the world's largest dedicated water-only fasting center. That closed in February. I'm still working with people remotely. Up till now, I've guided more than 12,000 people through fasts, averaging 26 days. Amazing changes happen for people, and I'm now 39 years without a day sick.
Okay, wonderful information. So tell us, when you were growing up, were you involved in health at all, or did something happen in your life that changed?
Well, as a kid, not involved in health, not really at all. I was a normal kid, had colds and flus, and did all the things kids do. In my 14th year, I grew 10 inches, which is 25 centimeters for the metric people, without gaining a pound. So I look like a stick with a nose. And hormones are kicking in. I'm wanting the girls to find me attractive. I look like a stick with a nose. So I thought to myself, maybe if I learn about nutrition, change what I'm eating, I'll be able to build more muscle. And so I started studying nutrition at 14, close to 15. And that changed everything. Honestly, high school and college, I forgot a lot of that stuff. I mean, at that point, I'm partying, drugs and alcohol, lots of pizza and beer and other things. But a year out of college, I got very sick. And that was really my major turning point. I gave up on medicine after 3 years of medical care, getting worse all the time. I gave up on medicine. And after trying everything else, homeopathy, chiropractic, every herbs, everything I could think of, nothing was helping me. I thought maybe I need to take another look at nutrition. So the science said I was doing everything I should be doing, but here I was sicker than anybody I knew. At that point, I started thinking to myself, every species on the planet, I had no idea how many there were. Science now believes there's between 25 and 30 million. Every species has one species-specific natural diet. And it occurred to me, maybe I'm eating, maybe what nutrition says isn't right. I mean, clearly, rice and beans aren't natural for our bodies. Clearly, animal products aren't natural for bodies, and obviously, processed foods aren't natural for anybody. And so I started thinking about what was natural, started making changes to my diet. Within 6 months, the change in me was so powerful that people started coming to me and asking me to help them with their health. Now, around the same time, I learned about fasting, and I began fasting as well. So I've been fasting now for nearly 40 years. I've fasted about 3.5 years of my life. But it was really that getting sick at 23. I'll be 65 soon. So that was 42 years ago. That changed everything. And I'm so grateful. I mean, a lot of people may have trouble understanding being grateful for something that seems challenging or difficult. 3 years, most of my time in bed. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because imagine it had been a far less severe issue, I might not have changed anything.
Sure. Now, when you say you fasted for 3.5 years, not 3.5 years.
No, not consecutively.
Okay.
What I mean is cumulatively. So I've done a lot of 21-day fasts. And if you take all the fasts I've done and add them together, there's more than 3.5 years worth of fasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the longest fast you've done?
Well, the longest I've ever done is 21 days. And it's, that seems funny to some people, given that I fasted well over 1,000 people for 42 days or more. My longest client fast being 4.5 months. I've got a guy right now who is doing his 4th fast with me. The first one was 47 days. Today he is on day 55. And he wants to keep going because he's had an issue with brain fog sort of things that's never resolved. He's eaten very well. I mean, I've known him now for 4 years, and this is his 4th fast with me. And even though he's improved his diet and he's fasted before, I mean, he did wind up going back to making poor choices again after the last one. But it's never really clear. When he's fasting, he feels much better. When he's eating fruit, it feels better, but eventually it comes back. And so we've agreed that there must be some more work his body needs to do. And it's interesting because today he's in Europe, so he's on an early morning small group call with me every day. This is how it works when I'm working with people remotely. There's a Zoom call every single day. We look at their vital signs. We talk about everything that's going on, their symptoms, what all the numbers mean. There's 30 metrics I'm looking at every day. And today, blood pressure, pulse, temperature are all up. That means the body's working harder. It's doing something today that it didn't do for the first 7.5, almost 8 weeks. He's 2 days away from being 8 weeks into this process, right? So people tell me all the time, well, I fast for Ramadan. That's 12 to 14 hours, right? This is a little bit different.
Sure. I recently spoke to Dr. Gabriel Cousins about fasting, and he said he prefers people to do a juice fast,
right,
because he says it's much more safer and you get similar to the same benefits. What's your opinion about that? And we're not questioning Dr. Gabriel Cousins. I'm just questioning what he said. So
you're not questioning Gabriel Cousins. I'll question him all day long. Yeah, that's complete nonsense. And Gabriel knows it. Sorry, Gabriel. I mean, I've known Gabriel for a long time, as you have. We all met around the same time. I know for a fact, because I know someone who had a very close relationship with Gabriel. Gabriel water only fasts himself while he's telling other people to juice fast. Water only fasting is 1,000 times more powerful and beneficial than drinking juices, because only when we completely shut off the digestive tract can the body shunt all the energy. It doesn't matter what we're consuming. If there's calories or nutrients, immediately when they enter the mouth, 1/3 of the energy goes to the digestive tract. So there's no possible way that drinking juices is nearly as powerful. And I should tell you, and maybe you already know this, but one of the first things I did on my journey, as I said, I tried everything. I did 120 days on juices. And then I did 1 week on water, and I said, I'll never drink juices again.
I didn't say more powerful. I said
you said safer. You said safer.
And similar benefits.
But the benefits aren't even close.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, the benefits are extreme. And let's talk about safer. Water-only fasting is completely safe if you know what you're doing. Okay, most people don't. There's a reason that every expert over the last 200 or 300 years of natural hygiene has said, only fast with experienced guidance. Right? That's absolutely critical. You have to have experienced guidance.
But here's the thing. There are a good amount of experienced people. Well, not a good amount, but there are some experienced people out there. And by experience, I mean they've worked with a lot of people. But they don't all have the same approach.
Right.
So if somebody's seeking out somebody with experience, who has a lot of experience in working with a lot of people, but they have a different approach, is it that there's more than one way to be successful? Or is it like, it's my way or the highway? What's your opinion?
Well, everything is relative. So if you work with, first of all, I think it's clear that there's nobody on the planet that has anywhere near the experience that I have. Not even close.
I don't.
It's okay if you.
I don't know that. I haven't looked, but we'll take your word for it. I haven't looked at that.
For instance, you know very well that True North exists in California. Okay, Alan Goldhammer is the owner of True North. He's a chiropractor. He's not a doctor. By the way, neither doctors nor chiropractors learn anything about fasting in school. So the fact that he's gone through that program doesn't give him more information about fasting. He got 3 months of training when he got certified. I got 2 years of training because they wouldn't accept me because I wasn't a licensed practitioner. I hired a guy who was certified to teach people, and he worked side by side with me for a year. Actually,
Who was
lived
that?
on site.
Who was that?
That was Robert Snydak. And
Okay.
when Robert left at the end of the year, because we had some differences, I hired a friend of mine, Tim Trader, who spent a year living on site. So I had I got 2 years of training. Goldhammer had 3 months of training. Okay, Goldhammer doesn't supervise his clients' fasts. He runs a huge institution which focuses mostly on feeding people cooked vegan food, because they can't do that at home, I guess. And then there's a lot of juice fasts. So he actually has relatively few people fasting. I've overseen every single client for 30 years, more than 12,000. I don't know if, I mean, Doug Graham, ran a center for a few years until he was shut down. He runs 1 or 2 small groups a year. I mean, Doug has, probably fasted maybe 1,000 people in the same 30 years, not a fraction as much time. So if you fast at one of these places, will you see benefits? Of course you will. Everything is relative, okay? And they'll keep you safe. In fact, they'll keep you safer because they'll have you doing things that make you safer but ensure you can't get the same benefits. At True North, they tell you not to drink more than about 2 liters a day, only when you're thirsty. Everybody drinks when they're thirsty. We've measured the hydration of more than 8,000 people. Everyone's dehydrated. Drinking when you're thirsty doesn't work because we lose touch with our thirst mechanism. And this is a well-accepted precept of science. As we get dehydrated, we lose touch with our thirst. We get dehydrated. You grew up more or less as I did, I think. You grew up 12 or 15 years later than I did, so you probably had more junk food available. My mother wouldn't buy much of that stuff, but if you grew up eating chips and crackers and cookies and all this stuff, the stuff is dry. It's sucking the water out of the body. So everyone's dehydrated. It's interesting. I have a friend who you may know. He's a doctor and a vegan for 45 years, and he worked at True North for 9 years. And he doesn't believe that mucoid plaque exists. But every one of my clients eliminates hard, painful, foul-smelling material, which is clearly not the watermelon and papayas that they're eating now. Because as you know, that's quick, easy, painless, odor-free, right? So most of these other people think it's not there because the way they take people through the process, they never eliminate any. You have to get enough water. As you increase your water intake, you do increase the potential risk. But we're looking at 30 metrics every day. I make sure people's electrolyte levels are where they should be when they start. We can have them checked at any time if we need to during the process. It's honestly, I mean, when I started, I didn't have clients testing their electrolytes before they started. In the first 22 years, we had a few people have electrolyte issues. Everyone's fine. No one's ever died or anything, but there were people that needed to go to the hospital to get IVs. Since then, it's extremely rare. It can still happen sometimes because some people's bodies have a harder time holding on to these things. But if we follow simple guidelines, people say all the time, well, you have to take salt while you're fasting. No, you don't. Every species on the planet, our bodies work the same way, right? They fast and don't consume salt because our kidneys, their job is to filter out what they don't want while retaining what they do want. So if we don't drink water too quickly, we have to sip water slowly, as I've been doing, little tiny sips, right? If we sip water slowly, and
You're talking about during a fast or just in general?
Well, anytime, if you drink water quickly, you wind up peeing it out and losing electrolytes. Now, if you're eating, the average person on the planet now eats between 5 and 7 times a day. So if you're eating all day long, you're replacing electrolytes. So if you pee some out, it's not going to put you in significant danger. When you're fasting and all you're consuming is water, you definitely don't want to be losing electrolytes. So it becomes critically important that you sip water slowly. But if you do that, your kidneys are perfectly capable, as long as we're not pushing past the kidneys are essentially a filter, right? Every filter has a maximum flow rate. If we drink water faster than the kidneys can handle it, then we're going to lose electrolytes and put people in danger. More people get into trouble when they don't follow my directions and don't get enough water.
Well, you have experience, so you're able to guide people, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Back to my question, there are other people that are fasting,
right,
and they have a little different approach.
Sure, absolutely.
But they seem some success.
Yeah.
And with experience comes success and sometimes failures. That's how we learn, right? I'm sure over the many, many years you've been doing this, you've learned and improved what you do because you realize what's worked and what doesn't work.
Of course.
Okay, so if somebody's looking for somebody to fast, for some reason, if they're not able to get in touch, we'll find you, which is easy. I'm going to put his contact info below.
Easy to get.
But if they go to one of these other people that have been fasting, people with a good amount of experience, I mean, can they expect to get some benefit?
Of course. Again, everything is relative. And so what I mean by that is, if you go from eating First of all, if you go from eating the way most people do, and you go into a fast, even if it's not optimized, you're going to see benefits, right? Because as soon as you stop eating, I mean, the restorative processes, cleansing, healing, repair, growth, these processes require a lot of energy. And so every species on the planet, I don't know if you've ever had a dog or a cat, they get sick enough, what do? They refuse to eat. They go rest, they lay down, they don't move. You know, people argue, no, they just can't get to food. You can put food in front of them, they won't touch it. Okay? Every species on the planet instinctively stops eating when it's sick enough or badly enough injured because processing food takes so much energy. And so if you are fasting, even if it's not optimal, you're going to get some benefits. You want to maximize your benefits. It's like anything else. You want to maximize your benefits, you have to do the best. You said on Friday when I was here at a wonderful social event that there was a period of time where you ate a lot of gourmet raw food. Now, there are some people out there that say, no, just eat raw. You and I both know that there's a difference between an optimal raw diet and a way less than optimal raw diet,
100%.
right? I'll eat gourmet food from time to time, but I can't do it very often because I don't feel as good, right? And so the same is true with anything. If you want to be as healthy as possible on an ongoing basis, you need to optimize your diet. Now, you know, again, for me, it's probably, well, when I lived in Central America and there were no raw vegan restaurants, I might eat gourmet raw food, you know, half a dozen times a year. Here in Florida, it's been a lot easier to eat it once a month or something like that.
Well, I could say the best thing is with the people, there aren't many, but with the people out there that are doing long-term fasting, including Loren Lockman, look at their reviews, look at their videos, and do your research, see who you resonate with.
Right.
And then, you know, contact the people, talk to them, see who you resonate with, because fasting, it's a serious thing. It's not something that is in the background. You can change your whole life for a certain amount of time to do something. So you really want to make sure you've covered the bases, let's say, in your research.
Absolutely.
Now, when's the best time to fast? When somebody's sick or when somebody's healthy?
Well, it's not a simple answer. I mean, when you're sick, it becomes critically important to fast. Right, because again, when the organism is sick, it doesn't want to have to process food.
Okay.
Unfortunately, most of us have trained ourselves to eat all the time. When we're not hungry, when we're tired, when we're, you know, whatever we eat, that's what most people do to distract themselves. Most people don't even understand what real hunger is. Right there, oh, my stomach's grumbling, I'm hungry. No, your body is cleansing. Don't eat, right? So when sick, it's really important to fast. But there's some interesting information that I believe it's true that people who are well might see even more benefit than people who are sick. Because when the body's sick, I mean, when you come out of the fast, you're going to be well in most cases. I mean, and let's be clear. First of all, fasting done properly provides the body with the optimal conditions to cleanse and heal. Cleansing and healing is not guaranteed because there are times when the body can no longer do those things. Something has gone too long, it's gotten too far along. You know, I work with people that have stage 4 cancer that have been told, you've got 2 or 3 weeks to live. And I've helped some of those people live 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. But some of those people die relatively soon afterward because their body simply couldn't recover. It was already so damaged.
In those cases, the people that passed to the friends and family and other people criticize you and saying it was the fast that killed them just because the way circumstances.
You know how people are.
Because I know people when they go to Hippocrates, they come in a certain condition where they're already sick.
Right.
And sometimes they do great, but sometimes they don't. But they've already come there like at the end of their rope, so they're just too far gone.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. I mean, what happens is we had a case just like this. A woman in her late 60s, early 70s. She was, her skin was whiter than the chair. I mean, you can see, you know, my skin, your skin compared to the chair. Right? She had no color whatsoever. She needed oxygen all the time. She was connected to an oxygen tank. She had advanced cancer. She was told she had weeks to live. And she contacted me and said, can fasting help me? And I said, you know, in a situation like this, it's difficult. But it's the best chance you have. Medicine certainly isn't helping you. Medicine only ever suppresses symptoms. Now, I mean, the exception, of course, is trauma.
Sure.
Right? If, I've severed arteries in accidents, probably a good idea to get those sewn back together. Otherwise, you bleed out in 15, 20 minutes. But for disease, for being sick, all medicine does is suppress symptoms. So I would say to anybody in that situation, hey, if they've already said to you they can't help you, fasting is the best chance you have, right? You may or may not survive long term, but you'll feel better. You'll probably live longer. You'll definitely get healthier, even if in the end it's maybe too late to recover.
So what happened to this lady?
She died after she went home.
How long a fast did she do?
I believe it was 21 days.
And then she went home, and
she went home and she passed away shortly after. I mean, she had already given up.
Now, are you?
And her family blamed me.
Now, most people, or most fasting places or fasting people, I believe, from what I understand, will not touch somebody in certain situations for that liability.
Yeah.
But you seem to say, "Hey, I'm going to help you regardless of that."
I got into this to help people get well. I'm not going to turn people away.
Well, it's understandable because of the liability where you might not want to, but you have to, but you seem not to have done it. So you say her family blamed you.
Yeah.
Has it ever turned into, and it might be too much for the camera if it is, just say no comment, but has it ever turned into a lawsuit or something?
It hasn't. No, there's no question you can't ask me.
Okay.
I'm completely transparent.
So is it ever, like a family blaming you, has it ever turned into somebody lawsuit saying, okay.
No one's ever sued. There have been a couple people who threatened to sue and said they were going to sue. I'm sure they talked to a doctor, a lawyer, who said, you don't have a case.
Do you make your patients sign something prior to protect yourself? Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, look, and it's not just to protect myself. I mean, I want people to understand something. If you're fasting with me, you're the only one in your body. Okay? So I can guide you, but you're the only one who knows how you feel and what's going on in your body. You have to be willing to take responsibility, or I won't guide you. I won't work with you.
Sure. Now, long-term fast, you say the longest you've done was 40-something days fasting of people?
No, my longest client fast was 4.5 months.
Okay, 4.5 months. So how many days is that? It was 120.
It was 138 days.
That's just on water?
Yes.
Okay.
Just water.
Was that local or remote?
It was remote. He wanted to come to the center to work with me. He was a young man. He was 29, I think, at the time, and he was married, and his business had failed. And so the only way it was going to work was if his wife stayed with his parents, because they were from Mauritius and they lived in London, where his parents were, and his wife was going to need support if he wasn't there. So his parents hated his wife, and he didn't feel like he could leave her alone with his parents. And so he decided to work with me remotely instead. The plan originally was 42 days, which is something I do 10, 12 times a year.
So that's the average fast you do is when you fast people?
No, the average fast is, so in person the average was 26 days. Now that I'm working exclusively remotely, most people are doing 21. I still have people doing 26 and 30 days. As I mentioned, I've got a guy right now on his 4th fast who's on day 54, 55, I forget. Most people are doing 21, 26, or 30 days. He wanted to do 42. I do that about 10, 12 times a year. I fast 400 people a year on average.
Okay.
But I do 10 or 12 people, much longer. We were going to do 42 days. On that 42nd day, I'm about to give him instructions for a feeding, and he says, I don't want to eat. He said, I want to keep going. And I'm going to keep going with or without you. I'd rather have your guidance, but I'm not going to eat. I said, all right, I'll work with you. And so we kept going. I mean, I have taken many other people 7 weeks, 8 weeks, etc., not 4 months before. That was the first. I haven't done it since then. He was morbidly obese, of course. Right, the more reserves. I mean, the longest fast in history was 382 days, which is a year and 17 days. So
how much was this guy when he started weight-wise and when he finished?
I don't remember. It's been a long time. It's already been 15 years or so.
So you don't remember? Okay.
He was probably 5'5" or 5'6", 250 pounds. Something like that. He was big.
You don't remember when he finished what he was?
No, he would have lost over 100 pounds.
And have you spoke to him since in the 15 years?
Well, he had two things going on. He had stage 4 testicular cancer, and he had congestive heart failure. He had been morbidly obese since he was 10 or 11 years old. So when you're morbidly obese like that, you're putting a lot of strain on the heart. The heart becomes enlarged, which is a bad thing. And when he was done, there was no trace of cancer, but he died within a couple of years of congestive heart failure.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, so the average is like 21 days or something. Somebody might
average is somewhere between 21 and 30 days.
Okay.
And the magic seems to happen. I mean, very few people fast with me less than 21 days. It takes 10 to 11 days to be fully into ketosis, which means your body is detoxifying as rapidly as possible. And so if you do 21 days, you've got 10 or 11 days in the deepest part of the process. True North fasts a lot of people, but almost their average fast is like 11 days long.
Would you ever say or suggest that you shouldn't put a timing on the fast? You should listen to see how your body responds, because some people might want to go longer or less.
Yeah.
So to put a number on it is, we might have to end it sooner, we might have to go longer. Do you think it's better to not put a number, or do you think you have to?
I think in an ideal world, the best situation would probably be to go into it open-ended and see what happens. And that's how I started out, because it made sense to me and it was possible. And what happened within a few years was, and I've never done any advertising. I've stayed very busy for 30 years doing this now without any advertising. You were at my first center a long time ago, 25, 26 years ago, something like that. I've never advertised because everyone would return and refer other people, and so we stayed so busy. Shortly after you were at my center, we moved to a much larger location. We had space for 9 guests where you were, 18 at the next place, and then I moved to Central America, and in our last place we could take 34 people at a time. We would normally have about 32 people there. And so what happened was, we had so much demand that it became impossible. I sort of needed to know when you were going to leave, so we could put the next person.
Sure. Okay.
And so I learned. I was in the commercial real estate business and worked with a hotel developer, and learned that's how hotel. It's much better if we know when you're. So we started doing it that way. Now here's the thing. I have enough experience. If you come to me and say, I've got these issues, I can generally look at your situation and give you a pretty good sense of how long you need to go.
Okay, so if somebody does fast with you and they want to learn, do you teach them, let's say in the future, let's say they say to themselves, they want to fast every year. I know it's not a good business model, but if they say, I want you to teach me what to look out for so I can do this on myself in the future, do you do that? I'm
teaching, while we're going through the process, I'm explaining everything to them every single day, every day. And yet, they come back.
But if they want to know what they should be looking for,
yeah, absolutely.
Will you help them out with that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm teaching them every single day. But almost everybody realizes at the end they still don't understand it as well. And so people tell me, there's a woman who's fasted with me 12 times. There's a woman who's fasted with me 9 times, and these are all 21 to 30 days. There's a guy who's done 7 fasts, another guy who's done 8 or 9. Many people do, not many people do that, but many people do 2, 3, 4 fasts with me. They tell me they have a better experience and they get more benefit when they fast. Many of them have tried, but they do better with my guidance.
Now, some people would suggest that if you do one long fast and you're eating healthy, you don't necessarily need to do a long fast again.
Right.
What's your opinion about that?
Well, my experience has shown that, so first of all, if you do one fast of 21 days or longer and you do it properly, it's life-changing. Okay? You've been raw nearly as long as I have, about 30 years, right?
Yes.
I'd be willing to guarantee you in writing, if you've never done 21 days with me, and I know you haven't, it would be life-changing. You'd be blown away by how much better you felt and functioned afterward. That's what happens invariably. It doesn't matter. I've had people that have been 20, even 22 years, I think was the longest.
Well, I've done a 30-day fast. It wasn't with you, and it was life-changing.
Right.
And so I could say it was life-changing, yes.
But I guarantee you there's even more benefit, because there are little subtleties that it's very difficult to understand unless you've done this a lot. a lot. I mean, even with a lot, you could be repeating the same mistakes. I think we all have, genius in certain areas. I figured out what mine is. And so, I have many people who come to me after they went to True North, didn't get the results they wanted. They come to me, and they have a much different experience. So one properly conducted long enough fast is life-changing. Absolutely. But when people come back, even when they're making perfect choices, we find that they get more benefit by fasting a second, third, and for some people, even a fourth time. For most people, if they maintain optimal or very close to optimal choices, they probably don't need to fast more than 3 or 4 times. And it's funny. I think some people think, "Oh, that's a lot." Well, I mean, you've got to be what, around 50?
Me, I'm 55.
55. Okay, you're 10 years younger than me. So, but even if someone's only 35, if they spent 35 years making less than optimal choices, and we're talking about getting all that stuff out of their body over the course of 9 or 12 weeks with 3 or 4 fasts, that's a pretty small amount of time invested to undo 30 plus years worth of poor choices and damage. So it can take that long to get to the very highest level. Again, for most people, one properly conducted fast, they're going to feel and function so much better than they ever had before. I mean, it's better than most people think is possible. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I've had people that have been to your physical locations where you fast and remotely.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of good, positive feedback.
Uh-huh.
There are some people that said they just weren't ready to continue, and you pushed them. And some of them really appreciated you pushing them, and they were very thankful when they completed it at the end.
Sure.
But some people did not continue. They left, and they felt you're pushing them. They didn't feel good about it. And I know you were doing it basically, because you're watching them, monitoring their symptoms and knowing that even though they don't feel like going, you can do it because your signs say it's okay.
And they would have benefited from continuing.
If they were in danger, you would just tell them to stop.
Of course.
Yeah. So what do you say? I'm sure you've run into that over the years.
Sure.
When somebody consistently tells you they want to stop and you're trying to encouraging them, do you get to a point where you say, like, okay, if you want to stop, or do you just, how do you handle situations like that? Because I'm sure it happens.
Well, I mean, every situation is different. When someone comes to me and says they want to stop, I'll say, oh, okay, well, why do you want to stop? I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, okay, I mean, look, I'll always say this. It's completely up to you. It's their choice. I don't force anyone to keep fasting.
Sure.
Okay. In fact, at my second location, the one after where you were many years ago, the kitchen was open to the rest of the building. I mean, in Costa Rica, the main building was locked at night. No one could get in. Now there was fruit on all the fruit trees. We had people go eat if they chose to do that. But what I would say to people is, look, it's completely up to you. You would definitely benefit from continuing. Would you be willing? I had a woman. In fact, before we got on this live, I left a message for a client in New Zealand. She's asleep. She'll be up in an hour or two. She completed a process with me 4 or 5 days ago, and she had a difficult time. 60-year-old woman, super, super dehydrated. Lots of wrinkles on her face. I'm much older than she is, and don't have that. She's super, super dehydrated. And so that's going to make the process harder because that old hard waste is going to be super hard and dry. And so, I don't know if you heard me say, have you had more elimination? Because she wasn't eliminating much. Why? Because the old stuff gets stuck and it sits there like a plug. If you don't fast long enough, that stuff is never leaving your body. You cannot optimize your health until you get rid of that. Okay? It's the reason I'm the most hydrated person we've ever measured, because I got all that stuff out of my system. Right? So it sits there like a giant sponge until we do that. So what I would say to someone is, it's completely up to you. You would definitely benefit from continuing. She said this to me about halfway through the fast. She said, I think I'm ready to stop. And I said, it's up to you, but you're here, you're doing this because you're dealing with various significant challenges. I know it's difficult, but if you continue, I promise you it's going to be worthwhile. And so I said, do me a favor. wait 24 hours. If you want to break it tomorrow, no worries, we'll do that. She waited the next day and decided to go on. That's what I normally do. Now, you know, there's no question. I mean, I've grown. I'd like to think I'm a better man today than I was last week, definitely than last year, and certainly than 10 years ago. We mature, you know, hopefully we become more balanced. I'm sure I was sometimes overly pushy, but I was trying to help people who definitely would have benefited. And there are people that still argue with me. No, I needed to stop. I'm like, you didn't. And there's no reason you needed to stop.
So when it comes to breaking the fast,
yeah.
Is it the same way for everyone when it comes to breaking a fast?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And what is that way? How would you suggest if...
Well, so first of all, you know, keep in mind, again, that every species on the planet fasts when it's sick or badly injured. Do they use juices? Of course not. They eat whole foods. They start with small quantities of food. What I do is I have my clients start with papayas, watermelon. When we were in Costa Rica, it'd be fresh coconut water because we had coconuts all the time. You know, we had those three things year round, all the time. So high water content, easy to digest, small quantities, multiple tiny meals the first day. We're just trying to get the digestive tract back operating again after taking off 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? We start with small quantities. The next day, we increase the quantities. We space the meals out a little bit more. Usually by the third day, they're going down in the number of meals. Every day, they're eating a little bit more. I encourage them to stay with high water content foods because most people are seriously dehydrated. Most people are walking around with tons of old, hard material in their bodies. I know people argue with this, or they think, you know, this is controversial. It's not. Everyone who's ever fasted with me, I'll be, a month from now, I'll be speaking in New Mexico at a church, at an event organized by an MD who fasted with me in June after 7 years in bed, unable to function. No, not working, barely able to walk to the toilet. Now she's hiking 3 miles a day through the mountains of New Mexico where she lives. Her process was so powerful in September, just 2 months after she completed her fast, her 23-year-old daughter fasted with me. And it's been life-changing for her too. Her husband, who's also a doctor, wants to fast. So yes, there is a way to break a fast. It's high water content foods. Juices are suboptimal always. You know, they're not the devil. It's not like you're necessarily screwing yourself over, but they're definitely less optimal than whole foods. We can't improve something by running it through.
So small meals, high water content foods.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
Okay, now, does the environment matter? If somebody's working with you, and let's say they're in Minnesota or Michigan in the winter, do you tell them it'd be better if they did it in the summer, or does...
Well, I don't ever work with people from Minnesota.
Well, in general.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so my first 2 locations were in a place, Maryland, where we had winter. We had snow and freezing temperatures. People fasted all year long. Was it ideal? No. I mean, it would be better to be here in nature with a mango tree behind us.
Sure.
That'd be better, right? But it's still been, you know, I mean, the environments I created, there was no particle board. There was no, you know, like everything was as clean as possible. I've always been super conscious and conscientious about that. So, but it would be better. Having said that, I mean, I fast people all the time in Finland and Norway and Scotland, you know, Sweden. They could be anywhere. I've got a client who lives inside the Arctic Circle. He's fasted with me several times.
Wow. There's 2 schools of thought when it comes to long-term fasting. One of them is stay in bed and don't move. You know, use as very little energy as possible.
Right.
The other one is it doesn't matter. You know, as long as your vital signs are okay, you can walk around, you can move. Yeah. What's your opinion?
Well, there's no question, and I'm surprised that there's really even any serious discussion about this. I think anybody serious about fasting understands you need to rest as completely as possible. The whole point of the process, I mean, there are physiological changes, biological changes going on because you're not eating. But we're also trying to conserve as much energy as we can so the body can use that energy to cleanse and heal. So if we're using energy doing anything we don't need to do, we get less benefit. And I literally see that happen. I'll tell you briefly, I'll summarize a case from many years ago. It was at my last location in the U.S., which we moved out of like 22 years ago. So I met a guy. There was a organic market not too far away. And when I first printed my business cards, they just said health coach, because at first I was just a health coach. And I wasn't running a fasting center yet. And I think by the time this guy met me, I had already opened Tanglewood, but was just kind of getting started. And so I put these cards out in places that let you do that. And I get a call one day from this guy named Grant, and he says, I'm looking for a health coach, but I'm interested in raw food. Do you know anything about that? And I said, I'm raw vegan for, at that point, whatever it was. It had probably been 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm your guy. And so he started working with me, but not fasting, just getting some coaching. And we became good friends. He would hang out. We were about the same age. He was a professional videographer who worked for CNN, freelance, CNN, the Discovery Channel, people like this. And he was so good that CNN gave him a free office, no charge, because they wanted him on site when they needed him. And so when I had an event in Philadelphia, Arnold.
Yes.
I'd go up to Arnold's way. I spoke there 4 or 5 times. I convinced Arnold to move his place because he didn't like being where he was before.
Sure.
He wanted to be closer to home. I'm like, go to home. He's like, I wish I could sell organic. It's too much. I'm like, just charge the difference. You're going to make the same amount of money. You don't have to make the extra, right? Anyway, he fasted with me a couple times, and I've spoken there many times. So Grant would drive me up there and would videotape the whole thing for me. And so I finally convinced him to fast. And he fasts the entire month of October. He's fasting and refeeding. And this was back before everything was digital. Here we are recording this entire thing with incredible, the quality.
Sure.
On a little tiny camera. Back then, everything was analog. And he had this huge, very heavy, $100,000 professional video camera. And he's walking around Tanglewood with this camera on his shoulder, taping everything for my benefit. And I'm like, thanks, dude, put that thing away. Go lay down. You should be resting. He's like, I feel fine, mate. I'm like, you need to be resting. He wouldn't do it. At the end, he had driven up in his Honda van where he had all of his equipment, but he brought his weight bench and all of his weights with him because we had 17 acres.
So in the end, not to interrupt you, it's better to rest.
No, but listen.
Okay.
He came back. So he's working out. At the end, he starts refeeding. He's lifting weights. He's running. He comes back and does it the second year. Exactly the same. Fast. Exactly the same time. Except this time, I had a year to work on him. I convinced him to do it my way. He rested. He came to me like on day 5 and said, I don't think this is working. I said, what do you mean? He said, I feel much weaker. I said, right. Because your body's detoxing much more heavily.
Exactly.
There's a book out there written by an MD that says, if you feel bad when you're fasting, you're doing it wrong. No, you're detoxing. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Right? So felt much weaker, felt much worse, stayed in bed the whole time or resting. He starts working out again, came up with his weight bench. This time he's running much faster and lifting much more by the end of the process. Okay, it was clear he got much more benefit by resting. Absolutely.
So I've learned in my studies and what I'm doing, the importance of sunlight. And literally, I believe we do literally get nutrition from the sun.
Well, we certainly get vitamin D.
Vitamin D, but I believe there's other unspoken or unproven nutrition we get from the sun. There are people out there that call themselves sun gazers. I think people that are just in general outdoors more are better off. Some people take it to the extreme and they call themselves breatharians, and they say they just don't even eat. They don't need to eat.
Right.
I'm not going to go that far and say that's a realistic thing or wise for somebody to do, but what's your opinion with the people that claim to be breatharians? Do you think that's something realistic, or do you think it's not?
Well, so first of all, I mean, I agree with you completely that sunlight's important. I'm in Florida because I'm currently stuck in the U.S., and this is one of the few places in the continental U.S. I can get plenty of sun all the time. You know, I wouldn't have, I'm in an apartment and I'm on the 5th floor, but I wouldn't have rented a place without a balcony. I'm outside at least an hour a day when it's sunny. between calls, when I'm sitting at my desk for a while working, I'm like, okay, I need a break, 10 minutes of sunshine. Okay, it's critically important. And the science is clear that people who live in sunny climates and spend more time outside are healthier. There's no question about it. Is it possible to live without food altogether? I don't know. Maybe it is. I'm not saying it's not possible. I will say that almost all of the self-proclaimed breatharians out there have been shown to be eating. And then they say, well, I don't say I don't eat. I said I don't have to eat. Okay. So, is anyone actually doing this? I don't know. There's a guy, I can't remember his name. You might have seen him, African-American, wears a lot of purple clothes and, speaks in certain tones and so forth, who spent 3 months at my friend's farm in the Canary Islands. Pretends he's breatharian. She said he was eating every single day. He also claims that he's celibate. She said, and there have been, not she said, there have been 3 or 4 women who have accused him of sexually molesting them.
Okay. Getting back on topic here, fasting. We've covered the long-term fasting. What about short-term fasting and intermittent fasting and benefit, good thing, intermittent fasting?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We definitely, so I had that little tiny banana you gave me because why not? It's fresh off the tree and, I love them. Normally, my first meal of the day is between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. And I will sometimes eat once, I'll sometimes eat twice. If I eat a second meal, I'm usually done eating by 7 p.m. I believe, as I know you do, we should be eating only during daylight hours. So giving your body that break, for me, most days it's 20 hours. I've been doing this now for 33 years. I don't eat for 20 hours a day most of the time. If I go to a farmer's market, usually in the morning, and someone offers me a sample of something, I'll probably eat that. Fruit, fruit I haven't tried, something like that. But most of the time, I'm not eating until much later.
So generally, you have your eating period is 4 hours a day. Generally, is what you're saying.
Maybe it's 5 sometimes, but typically it's not more than 5 hours. And there are occasional exceptions. Sure, it's not a hard rule.
I've heard a good idea. Somebody said, try to get used to having a 10-hour eating window, and then slowly but surely, this is for the average person, slowly but surely try to expand it maybe to 12 hours when you get comfortable doing that, maybe to 14-hour fasting window. And do that, and
you can do that. What happened for me was I was visiting I went to my first natural hygiene conference 33 and a half years ago. I met a woman there who had the most beautiful name. Her name was Loren. It was crazy. She wound up living with me, and people would call and say, "Is Loren there?" And we'd say, "Yeah, which one?" We lived together for a couple of years. She was the first raw vegan woman I met. And we wound up dating for 2 or 3 years. But she lived in Chicago when we met, and I lived in D.C. So I was visiting her for the first time, and that first morning she said, "Are you hungry?" Which I interpreted to mean, "Do you want to eat something?" I'd eaten every other morning of my life. I said, "Yeah." So she liked to make food. So she prepared a little fruit salad and came back with 1 bowl. And I said, "Aren't you going to eat?" She said, "No, I'm not hungry." I said, "Yeah, but you got to eat breakfast." She's like, "I'm not hungry." I said, "Yeah, but breakfast, help me out here. Most important meal of the day, right?" She said, "Loren, I'm not hungry." And I'm like, oh, whoever thought of only eating when you're hungry? And I thought to myself, I wonder when the last time I was actually hungry in the morning. I stopped eating. That was the last day I ate breakfast.
Well, I have the concern with that idea of hungry, because most of us never felt true hunger. I think it's a habit hunger.
Most people don't know what it is.
It's a habit hunger and it's true hunger. And considering we could fast for 30 days with no food, we're not hungry the next day. It's a habit hunger more than anything. Because when I stopped eating at nighttime, I realized no matter how much somebody eats during the day, if they're used to eating at a certain time at night, they're going to eat that time, but it's a habit hunger, not really a true hunger.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, what I find is when we get the body clean, if you're paying attention, it's much easier to tell when you're actually hungry. And so normally I'm only eating if I'm actually hungry, which is why some days I eat once, some days I eat none. I don't eat at all, even though I'm normally eating twice a day. If I'm not hungry, I won't eat. the day, last Friday, I did something I rarely do. I had 2 gourmet meals in one day.
After here, you went to...
I wasn't planning on that, and I wouldn't have ever planned it that way. It just happened that way. I've been talking to Sal about when do they do their pizza night, because he told me months ago, you should go to the pizza night. So I'm like, when's it happening? Every time it happened, I was out of town. I had something else going on. I already had a commitment. So on Friday, he said to me, it's tonight. And I'm like, oh, damn. So I went ahead and went with them all. And the next day, I ate nothing. I didn't want to eat at all.
Speaking of which, so eating, fasting 1 day a week, some people practice that. Yeah. They go a whole day. And I'm not even talking about 24 hours, because you can eat every day and still fast 24 hours from lunch to lunch.
Exactly.
Which is okay, but somebody...
More like 36 hours.
Somebody did 36 hours. They take 1 day a week and they don't eat anything.
Right.
I've heard people say, well, there's no real fasting benefits of that, but I think there's a tremendous benefit in your mind to know that, hey, I can conquer this and go throughout a whole day without eating.
I agree with you. I did that for 2.5 years when I was first understanding fasting. I was like, I'll do 1 day a week. I came to believe that it's a very superficial cleanse. In fact, I was flying back from lectures in Europe several years ago, 6 years, 7 years ago. And it was one of these airplanes where they still had screens up here, because I wasn't watching anything, but on one of the screens, there was a CNN thing. And I can see on the writing, they're talking about fasting. So I plug in and they're saying, they're talking about this new great intermittent fasting scheme, 12-12. And I'm going, fasting 12 hours a day? You mean don't eat from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.? Like, who's eating more than 12 hours a day anyway? Well, I guess there are people who are doing that. The only people who would benefit from fasting for 12 hours a day are people who are already doing that. I mean, normally I might have eaten breakfast if I was eating breakfast at 9 o'clock and dinner by 6 or 7. So I'm already fasting 15, 16 hours a day.
Sure.
And here they're talking about fasting for 12. The people who benefit most from short fast, physically benefit, are people with the worst diets. Because giving the body, if you're eating nothing but McDonald's and you give your body a 36-hour break, it's going to be super grateful for that. If you're living on the mangoes and papayas and sapotes that you're growing here, your body doesn't really need a break. I mean, there's no significant benefit by taking a 36-hour break.
There's some people that say the body, it takes 72 hours to go into ketosis, and people are into the keto diet and just the idea of going into ketosis and so on. It's 3 days, 72 hours. Do you believe that that's when the true benefits of fasting start, after 3 days or immediately?
No. There are. So, again, being in ketosis simply means that your body is starting to use fat as a primary source of fuel, because our bodies are set up preferentially to run on sugar. So when we start fasting, and this is true no matter, I mean, again, I've worked with people who were more than 400 pounds, and we're measuring their muscle mass and their body fat every day. Their bodies are consuming muscle before fat, because the body wants to run on sugar, and when it runs out of sugar, by the time we're 16, 18 hours into the process, it starts to convert muscle to sugar, rather than use all that extra fat it already has. Because it's easier to keep running. It wants to run on glucose. Okay, and this is why people who think they're doing good by eating a ketogenic diet, when you're fasting, the level of ketones in your body is 3 to 10 times higher than when you're eating a ketogenic diet. Okay, and so you get far more benefit in a far shorter time. The way to do it is to fast periodically and then eat optimally, but not to stay in ketosis all the time. So there's definitely benefits that occur even if they're not from ketosis. Autophagy starts at 17, 18 hours into the process.
So 17 or 18 hours it starts?
Into the process autophagy, which is the process of the body consuming all the garbage, getting rid of the damaged cells and so forth.
So from right there, somebody doing
even 1 day,
a 1 day fast, they're going to start to experience the beginning of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because there's a woman who recommends 16-8, and she says, yeah, autophagy starts, at 16 hours. I'm like, yeah, but it's just starting.
Yeah.
How much benefit are you getting if you then eat right away?
Sure.
Right? We want to be in autophagy for a long time. So But the problem is there's a lot of self-styled fasting experts out there who have, I mean, I'm a self-styled expert, except that I have 30 years of experience with thousands and thousands of people. I'm talking about a doctor, an MD, who recommends 16-8, and she says when people are really sick, she'll have them fast for 3 or 4 days. And that's the totality of her experience, maximum of 3 or 4 days. We're just getting started at that point. As you said, I mean, ketosis is only starting 3 days into the process, roughly.
When is it dangerous to fast, or is it?
Well, it's dangerous to fast if someone is extremely emaciated. But it's important to understand that, I mean, I fasted a lot of people who are severely underweight, because often you'll have somebody who's underweight, they can't gain weight. For instance, imagine a severe gluten intolerance. I've seen this. Okay, what happens with severe gluten intolerance is the small intestine becomes so inflamed, it's not absorbing anything. Okay, and people get super, super skinny. How do they heal? I mean, medicine basically has very little for them, except, of course, avoiding gluten. Most people don't know that. That's what's going on. But fasting would allow someone's small intestine to heal, and then after the process, if they're eating properly, they gain weight with no problem. So I've had many people who are very, very skinny who are able to gain weight after the fast. But let's say you've got someone who is already, really, really extremely emaciated from anorexia, something like that. They can't fast. Of course, it's a bad idea to fast if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, because that will negatively impact the fetus or the baby, depending on what stage you're at. It's too rapid detoxification. Better at that point would be to optimize your diet. That'll improve your milk, that'll improve the health of your baby. I mean, the best thing, young ladies, if you want to have children, is you want to get your body clean before you get pregnant. That would be the ideal thing. Other than that, there's no one. I mean, there are people who say you shouldn't fast with severe kidney or liver disease. How do you think the kidney and liver heal themselves?
What about something like pancreatic cancer? It's fine, no issue?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, pancreatic cancer, usually by the time they find it, people have very little time left. It's one of those cancers that by the time it's discovered, they typically don't survive. In fact, it's an interesting thing because on one of my recent reels, someone said, well, Apple computer, Steve Jobs ate fruit. Look what happened to him.
Well, that's...
His oncologist, his cancer doctor said he probably got pancreatic cancer as a result of building computers in his garage when he was 21 with no safety measures. Imagine you're soldering everything yourself. You're working with these heavy metals, very toxic fumes. There's no fans. There's no protective masks. Just two guys in a garage doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But the doctor said he probably would have died much sooner had he not eaten the way he did.
Got you. So you're saying if somebody's already underweight or severely underweight or pregnant, those are the only two signs somebody should find a better time to fast.
Breastfeeding. Now, but if you're thinking people tell me all the time, hey, I'm 6 feet tall and 150 pounds. Am I too skinny to fast? No, I had a guy who was, here in Florida, 6 feet tall, 101 pounds when he started his fast. Very skinny. I had a woman who was 5'7", 88 pounds when she started.
So why do you say somebody shouldn't? That's a danger sign, or
no? What I'm saying is, you have to be more. That's why I said severely. Even those people at those weights can still benefit from fasting with guidance if they follow directions. Now, the guy who's 101 pounds wanted to go 21 days. I stopped him after 16. Okay, it was clear. Okay, you know what? That's all you got. You can't do any more. But he was perfectly fine.
And how did you know he couldn't do any more? By his weight?
It's not just weight. There's various signs. His feet started to swell, which is a sign that his body was breaking down more protein, and his body was having trouble getting rid of the byproducts. So it became clear. The woman who was 88 pounds, no problem at all, did 21 days. The one who was 85 pounds, 5'6", 85 pounds, no problem, did 21 days. I don't know about the 85 pounds. She's a doctor, by the way. The woman who was 88 pounds now weighs 125, roughly. So
it's when you have your clinic physically, you can monitor people. I know you said what you monitor, but how do you monitor people daily over the phone? Well, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's not over. It's a Zoom call.
It's a Zoom call. How do you monitor them daily?
I want to be able to see somebody. They have to monitor their own. So, I mean, it's easy today with modern automatic machines. They need a blood pressure machine, which measures blood pressure and pulse. They need an infrared thermometer. They can, I don't require blood sugar unless they have blood sugar issues, but I like to have more data.
So if they have a blood sugar, they'd have a meter.
Blood sugar meter.
Okay.
Could be a continuous glucose monitor, but you don't need to have that.
Okay.
They need something called a pulse oximeter, which is a very inexpensive little device that measures the oxygen saturation in the bloodstream. And then we need a decent bioimpedance scale where we can see weight, body fat, muscle mass, and how much water is in the body. The information we get from that device is incredible. I can see from that if you're hydrating stuff in your intestine.
How much does a scale cost like that?
A decent one's going to be $100, $125.
Do you recommend even somebody who's not fasting with you have that scale?
Well, the scale is only really useful if you understand how to interpret the information. Okay. And I teach my clients. I have people fasting with me for the third or fourth time who are still saying, I don't really understand that.
So do you have when somebody signs up with you to work with you, do you have like a pamphlet, these are the things you need to get, and here's where to get them?
Yeah, right now, we used to send them this beautifully put together guide. We have to redo it because it references things that are no longer possible. Sure. And so we have to redo that. What they get now is they get an email from me. As soon as they commit to the process by making an investment, we do a Zoom call, and I explain how to prepare for the process, exactly what they need. I'll also give it to them in writing. I actually prepare for them the spreadsheet they're going to use to track all their information, and I show it to them on the screen on Zoom call, and then I explain exactly how to use it, what it means, and then I send it to them right while we're on the call, so they have it in their inbox. And then it's a shared document, so if I happen to be looking at it while they're filling it out in the morning, I can see the numbers going in there. So every morning they put all that information plus a few other things on there.
So do you send them a list of the package of everything they need to get? Like you'll say Amazon is where you get this. You send them where to get it.
Well, I mean, if people ask, you know, in the U.S. you can buy any of these devices from a big pharmacy, any of the big pharmacies, Walgreens or whoever. Amazon, of course, you can get everything. That's easiest for most people, pretty much anywhere. But yes, I'll give them a list of what they need. If people ask, I can give them specific recommendations. I think what we're going to do, we've never done this before, is actually create a list and maybe a couple of options for each tool, you know, a better and like a good and a better, and then have them on the website, and people can just click there and make it easy for them.
Okay, so what about, how much are we looking at? How much, besides your fees, how much is somebody looking at to spend on the equipment to work with you?
Right around $200 probably.
Okay, so now if somebody wants to commit to, let's say, a 21-day fast or something, how much are they looking to spend? How much do you charge to work to work with you?
So I book by the week. So you can do 1 week and fast 5 days. Again, almost everyone does at least 21 days. That's a 4-week process with 7 days of refeeding, and that's $2,800. So it's $100 a day, but I work by the week, not by the day.
So if somebody wants to do a week and then they decide they want to keep going, do you just add on top of that?
Yeah, as long as I have space. So I limit the number of people I work with at one time. Right now I do 3 group calls per day. I'll take up to 6 people on a call, so I can take up to 18 people at a time. I'm used to working with far more than that because I would have 32 at Tanglewood, and I'd be working with as many as 18 people remotely as well.
So for a 3-day fast, you're looking at $2,100, then 7-day refeeding. So you're looking about around...
It's $2,800. $2,800 for 4 weeks with me, $3,500 for 5 weeks.
Okay, and what on these group calls? Yeah. What exactly do those consist of, and how often are they?
They're every single day. Again,
on Zoom?
On Zoom.
Okay.
So if you're the client, every day you're going to wake up, you're going to follow a specific protocol I give you. You're going to complete the form I've given you, which is a shared online document. You're going to fill in everything on there. We get on the call. When it's your turn, you might be first, you might be last. When it's your turn, I'm going to pull up your document, put it on the screen. Everybody can see it. We're going to go over all your numbers, what they mean. You're going to talk about how you're feeling and what's going on for you. I'll help you understand why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. I'll answer any questions you have. The call is an hour with up to 6 people. Usually that's enough time for each person. If I run out of time and someone has questions, if it can't wait, I'll figure out a way to accommodate them. But that's almost always plenty. And so they also have 24-hour access to me. They have my phone number. They have my WhatsApp number. They can reach me anytime if they need to. I ask them not to call unless they really need to. If they can't, they can send me emails. They get priority email access. So I have more messages than I can respond to every day. I'm sure you can relate. First thing I do is I scan to see if there are messages from people fasting with me. I respond to those first.
And what happens if somebody says, let's say they're doing a 30-day fast with you, and they go, I want to keep going, but I messed up last night and ate an orange or something, but they want to keep going. Do you say, well, we got to start all over again?
Well,
or do they say, let's keep going?
Well, we can keep going, but they are starting all over again. If you've eaten something, you broke your fast, and now you can start the fast again. I encourage everybody I work with, whether they're fasting with me or they're simply coaching with it. We've talked all this time about fasting, and that makes perfect sense. It's funny because I've had people say, well, you're a fasting expert, not a diet expert. I'm like, actually, I probably know more about what's optimal diet-wise than most raw vegans, because when you get your body clean enough, it becomes way more sensitive.
Sure.
So, I know that eating certain things that some raw vegans think are fine definitely don't belong in the body.
So speaking of like what we're taking in, so you're saying anything, even like lemon water, is going to stop the process of fasting?
Any calories or nutrients.
Okay. What kind of water do you recommend when somebody's fasting? What are you using during the fast? Because this is where I think you differ from a lot of the fasting places out there, because most long-term fasting coaches or teachers or clinics over the years have promoted distilled water.
Right.
Tell us what you promote.
Because they continue to perpetuate the same mistake over and over again. Herbert Shelton, who is the modern, grandfather of fasting, brought it back to our culture starting in the early 30s. That is almost 100 years ago. Believed in distilled water because it was the most pure water there is. And that's, by the way, not even true. If you use the most sophisticated reverse osmosis filters with tiny little micron holes, the water is actually more pure than distilled. But you don't want to drink that, because we're not meant to drink pure water any more than we're meant to breathe pure oxygen. Right? We're breathing air in which oxygen is, I forget what percentage, but it's only a percentage. And we extract the oxygen from the air and get rid of everything else. We're meant to drink water that contains inorganic minerals, as all natural waters do.
When you say we're meant to drink that?
Well, this is what's natural for us.
Well, if somebody's not near a river in nature,
but in nature,
they would get rainwater.
Well, okay,
which is distilled water, right?
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Okay, it's not.
That's a complete myth.
See, I learned something, everybody. Okay.
Well, let me talk about why. So you heard something. You don't have to believe it yet, but people say this, and it looks like distillation because the rain falls, it evaporates, right, and then becomes rain again and falls, and that's kind of what happens in a distiller. But here's the difference: in a distiller, you boil the water, you convert it into steam, it rises. And it would never condense until it encounters a solid object. It encounters the stainless steel collection plate, condenses, and then rolls down into the second chamber. Okay? Well, you may remember back when everyone was talking about flat Earth, there are some people who believe there was a giant plexiglass dome over the flat Earth. In that case, it would be the same. The water would evaporate, it would condense when it hit the solid object. But there's no solid object. Okay? Water precipitates out of the air when it encounters a solid object. Dust, pollen, minerals in the air, or pollutants. And so first of all, as you may remember, I'm a certified permaculture instructor. You don't want to drink rainwater until you've filtered out the pollutants. Because we might be, even if, South Florida is pretty heavily populated. But even if I lived in a very pristine area in Costa Rica, but we might have been seeing rainfall that was coming through clouds of pollutants that had traveled thousands of miles through the atmosphere around the globe from Mumbai, from some heavily toxic, polluted city. And so rainwater, it's not even pure water. It always contains minerals in every study. but it could also contain pollen, dusts, all kinds of other things.
So why do these people recommend distilled and you recommend spring water is what you recommend, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I believe that nature is perfect and has given us everything we need. I mean, I wound up where I wound up because there was a spring on site in Costa Rica. I bought that land because there was a spring there.
And when you were doing that, were you getting the water straight out of the spring?
Yeah.
Because even then, do you need to get it tested?
We would have it tested about once every 2 months.
But if somebody gets a property with a spring on it, they should definitely get the water tested.
And have it tested periodically because conditions can change.
Okay.
You know, if an animal died nearby that could pollute the water, you know, if it tastes weird, if it ever tasted weird, the same day we would have to do it first thing in the morning because we were sending samples on a bus 4 hours to San Jose to a laboratory. So we would first thing in the morning. If it tasted bad, we would stop offering it. We would give people bottled reverse osmosis water. We had 5-gallon bottles of water if we needed it. And then,
so RO water was your backup.
Exactly.
And
never much better than distilled because RO, with most household filters, still maintains 5 to 10% of the minerals. You need those minerals to be there. When you distill water, you give it a negative charge. Okay. Now you probably remember from, I don't know, 5th or 6th grade science class, magnetism. Anything with a negative charge attracts what?
A negative charge. A positive charge. Positive charge.
Yeah, anything with a positive charge. And it's anything with a positive charge. It doesn't say, yeah, I don't like that one. I'm going for the other one. Anything with a positive charge. So people, distilled water advocates often say, well, the distilled water only attracts the positively charged pollutants in your bloodstream, and that's good. Really? How does it decide? It doesn't have that ability. It doesn't have an intellectual ability.
So what happens when, I know you don't like to add anything because you're taking something that's...
Hang on, listen.
Okay.
So in addition to pollutants that can be positively charged, magnesium, potassium, calcium, and sodium are all positively charged electrolytes. People say it doesn't take them out of the bloodstream. Science says it has to. It's going to do that.
Okay, so I know you don't like to add things, but if somebody added sea salt to spring water or something like this, is that just like juicing almost?
Well, it's not. It's not like juicing. Juicing is much different because you actually have all the calories there. I mean, salt doesn't have any calories. But when your body sees added nutrients, it thinks there's food coming. So this water contains trace amounts of minerals. It only has sodium on it. Oh, no, it says 0 milligrams. But it has trace amounts of some mineral. Here we go. Potassium, 7.2 to 13 milligrams per liter. Calcium, 67 to 72 milligrams per liter. I mean, these are tiny, tiny trace amounts. If you look at I think it's Perrier that has a little bit of sodium in it, naturally. It's like 1/1000th per liter as much of a teaspoon of salt.
Now I know you like this
that brand,
this Mountain Spring Valley because it comes in a glass bottle.
Right.
But somebody's working with you, and I know the warning with the plastic and so on. But do you say, look, get spring water no matter where you get it from?
I would encourage them because it's up to them. I'll fast them with spring water or reverse osmosis. I won't fast them on distilled water. I won't do it. I encourage them to buy spring water in glass bottles. Some people, they don't want to spend the money. They buy plastic. I personally don't want to drink that stuff. I mean, sometimes you have to.
Now so what's better in your opinion? Distilled water in glass bottles or spring water in plastic?
I've never seen distilled water in glass bottles.
Well, you distill yourself at home and you put it in a glass bottle.
Yeah. I don't know. Would you rather
one poison for the other?
Would you rather lose your hand or your foot? They're both bad choices.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not a fan of distilled water under any circumstances.
No.
Now with the spring water, these like somebody's working with you, you tell them to get spring water.
Right.
Is these waters been tested? Because there's positive and negative reports about spring waters or questionable reports about the spring.
Yeah, of course they're tested. They're supposed to be tested for safety on a regular basis, probably like an ongoing basis. And there were reports that this particular brand, and I don't even remember what it was now, but it had some trace level of some toxic, naturally occurring, like radioactive material or something. I've been drinking it anyway. I'm not concerned about that. I like the way this tastes. I like the way it feels. You can buy Saratoga in glass bottles. Right now, in most markets here in Florida, there are at least 3 or 4 different spring waters in glass bottles. So you can find whichever one you like.
Sure. Now, how much water do you drink in general when you're not fasting?
I probably drink an average now of maybe a liter or so a day.
So how many ounces is that? Like
this bottle was half a liter.
So two
but
of these
it wasn't
bottles.
full when I got here.
So but you're drinking like 2 of these bottles in one day?
Yeah, I mean, I normally buy big bottles. I have a couple of these, so when we're on the road, when my girlfriend Sylvie was here last summer, and we drove from Pompano Beach, we stayed at the beach up to Orlando, to Disney World, we had one of these for everybody, or a couple of these for everybody.
But you're in agreement, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the more high water content food you have in your diet, the less water you need to drink in your daily day?
Yes, that's true. However, there are many people out there now, as I'm sure you're aware, that say, yeah, but because I'm eating a high water, they're eating a high water content diet, they don't need to drink water at all. Everybody we measure and we've measured 8,000 people, severely dehydrated. The most dehydrated people, we haven't talked about this, are those people who've had a dry fasting practice. Severely dehydrated every single time. In an age group, the most dehydrated. So if we looked at people between 50 and 60, and we had 2 people there who've been dry fasting and no one else had, even if they were eating terrible diets, the people eating terrible diets were better hydrated than the dry fasters eating perfectly, every time. The next most dehydrated people were people eating perfectly who don't drink water. They're more dehydrated than people eating McDonald's. It seems crazy, but people eating poorly are drinking.
Now, would it be more of a challenge for somebody to fast with distilled water, besides the reasons you said, but also because it's making it harder for your body because you're literally like getting dehydrated as you're drinking? So
it's not very well absorbed into the cells, and it's taking electrolytes from your body.
So would it make that even more of a challenge to fast?
I would think so. I would think it would make it more dangerous, and maybe this is why True North only limits people to 10. Most people.
Well, I think people. I think from what I understand, the advocates of distilled water limited is when you're fasting, you don't want any minerals or nutrients at all, not even in a tiny amount.
No, that's not true. It's not true at all. As long as it's naturally correct. I mean, again, we see amazing results all the time for 30 years.
Sure. But is there some to say that if you're drinking this water, you're getting some minerals in, so it's not...
Yeah, there's tiny... Well, the tiny amount of trace minerals mean that we're not taking minerals from the bloodstream, and that the water is able... We actually need them to be there to cross cell membranes. We need that to be there. So these are electrolyte minerals. Electrolytes allow the body to conduct electricity, and that's what we run on. So we want to have those. Again, this is what happens in nature. The arguments against spring water are silly, and there are some people who say you should never drink it. Right? The inorganic minerals collect in your joints. Right? On True North's website, there's a distiller which shows all the scale. This is what's going to happen in your body. Well, yeah, if you're boiling water in your body, that scale's there because you've boiled the water away and left the minerals that don't boil.
You know what's something so interesting that happened to me that you probably never heard this before, but it's good and bad, I guess. So I had a Berkey water filter. What's your opinion about Berkeys, by the way?
Well, I've never used one. I've heard they're pretty good.
Okay, so a Berkey filter it's just water, a silver container that like sits on top of your counter.
Right.
You fill it up with anything. They say you can fill it up with any type of water, and it'll filter out everything it needs to filter out.
Right.
And so
supposedly eliminates the chlorine and fluoride.
Yeah, chlorine, fluoride, and some of them you have to get an extra filter to get rid of the fluoride. But so you get this, but the way they test it is a red dye. That's what they recommend, testing with a red dye. So once every couple of months, to a couple times a year, you pour water in and you put the red dye in.
Right.
And the red dye is not supposed to come in the water you're drinking. That's how you know the filters are working.
Right.
My downside to it is every time I tested it, the filters weren't working, so I got rid of the Berkey. But I didn't know that at the time, and when I did my 30-day water fast, I was using it with Berkey filtered water with a filter that wasn't working.
Like tap water.
So in essence, I did a 30-day fast with tap water. Now I'm sure it's not just like coming straight out of the tap, because I'm sure the filters...
Of course it's eliminating a lot of the stuff.
We've got a lot of the stuff.
Of course.
But from what you're saying is, from what I'm hearing you say is, I might have been better off doing that than just doing a 30-day fast with just distilled water. Because I was getting some sort of...
Distilled water's... Oh, yes. You would be better off doing what you did than distilled water I would never do.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally would never do it.
Yeah.
If I'm super thirsty and all there is distilled water, I'll have a glass of distilled water. But, like, I'm not going to travel with... I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to...
Let me ask you this question about water.
Yeah.
This is what... In terms of getting up at night to go to the bathroom and pee, right? I know if you're drinking distilled water, it's not getting absorbed well in the body, so you're almost guaranteed that you're gonna go to the bathroom more often. Whereas if you're absorbing the water, it's going to be absorbed and you won't go to the bathroom as much.
Yeah.
So if you're doing this, like, does it matter what time you drink at night, or does it matter what type of water you're drinking not to have to get up to go to the bathroom?
Yeah. It matters insofar as, if you drink a glass of water just before you go to bed, you're probably going to have to get up to pee. When people are fasting with me and sometimes having a hard time getting enough water in, and again, we can see from their vital signs that they need more water. If they don't drink more, we see negative effects because of that. And it becomes very clear that they need the water, even when they can't get it. So I do have people sometimes that are drinking right up till they go to bed. But if you stop drinking, let's say you go to bed at 10 o'clock, and you stop drinking by 7, you should not have to wake up to pee at all. And even after 7, if you take, let's say your mouth feels a little bit dry, you take a little sip, you should be perfectly fine. The reason people wake up, and usually as people get older, they have to pee more often, okay? The reason for that is very simple. You have 17 children?
Yeah, working on 20.
You got, 3 children, 4?
5.
Yeah, 5, okay. So when the mothers have been pregnant, they peed a lot at night. I don't know if you remember, but that's usually what happens.
Well, the mother
the women
pee
a lot.
They pee all the time because they're pregnant. It's a common thing.
Well, it's not because they're pregnant. It's because the weight of the baby, especially when they lay down, the weight of the baby is sitting on the bladder.
Sure.
So the bladder feels full. If I had a plastic bag, I could demonstrate it for you. The bladder feels like it's full when it's not full. And so they pee. And we used to measure this when we were still in the U.S. We could buy something called a urine hat. And it's a device, it's just a plastic thing that sits on the toilet bowl. And then you put the seat down over it. You can sit down and pee. And it captures all the urine. And it's calibrated. So I just would ask people, okay, we're going to put this in your toilet. I want you to carefully count how many times you get up at night to pee. Next day they'd say, oh, I peed 4 times. We look at how much is there. Oh, look, it's 1 liter. You only peed 250 milliliters each time you peed. You shouldn't even have the urge to pee if there's only 250 in your bladder. Okay, normally you get the urge to pee when the bladder's about 70% full. And so what's happening, they're getting the urge to pee because the weight is sitting on the bladder. Okay, so with older men, guys younger, your age and older typically, even younger than you, 50, it's often the case where there's benign prostate enlargement, right? It's not really, when they say benign, what they mean is it's not cancerous. But the prostate shouldn't be enlarged. When the prostate's enlarged, you can't fully empty your bladder. So let's say you should get the urge to pee when your bladder's 70% full. You get the urge to pee, you go pee, but you can't empty it. And so it's still 35% full. Well, you're going to have to pee much more often because you can never empty it.
Sure.
So it fills up again quickly. That's the second reason people pee a lot. The third reason is kind of like the first one, okay? There's weight sitting on your bladder. What that is all the stuff in the intestine that you're hydrating when you're fasting. And we see this very clearly. I have people come in, they never wake up to pee at night.
Do you think sleeping position has anything to do with it, possibly?
Maybe a little bit. It could affect it. But they never wake up to pee at night before they start. Then they start having to pee once a night, and then twice a night, and then 3 times, and then 4 times, and sometimes 5 and more times. I had a guy who was 60 or 62 who had benign prostate enlargement, and he was already at home. He was waking up 5 times at night to pee because of the prostate. He began fasting 21 days. By the end of the fast, he was waking up 22 times at night to pee.
So is that good or bad?
Well, it's not good for sleep because he would sleep 10 minutes and have to pee again.
Yeah.
But it was because of all the weight in his intestine. he got all this old waste out. And I saw him a year later. I did a lecture tour that he organized for me in Colorado. He lived in Boulder. So I spoke in Denver and Boulder and Fort Collins, Colorado, stayed at his house. And he told me he was only having to pee twice a night, much less than before he fasted.
Good. But during the fast, he was peeing more because it was detoxing.
Because he's got all this weight, all this old material in the intestine. As he hydrates that, the weight of that when he lays down is sitting on the bladder.
Gotcha. So another question I have is about Dr. Robert Morse.
Yeah.
So Dr. Robert Morse talks about when you urinate, it should always have like a color to it. If it's white, it's not a good thing. And
you mean clear?
Clear.
Yeah.
And I never kind of understood this, what he's trying to say. And it sounds like, I mean, tell me about this, what your opinion is of this. Because from my experience is if you have yellow urine or sediment or anything like this, you're peeing a lot of nutrients out. But if you have clean urine, you're pretty much clean. So, but he's kind of said different. So what's your understanding of this?
Yeah. So first of all, your urine does not need to be yellow. Okay. If it is yellow, it should be a very, very pale yellow. My urine is normally clear or very close to clear. The color of your urine is dependent on the proportion of water to the stuff that you're getting rid of, to solids. The higher, the more dehydrated you are, the less water there is available to pee out, the darker the urine is. Okay? So Morse, I guarantee you, like everybody else, is severely dehydrated. Okay? And the people he's working with are severely dehydrated, and they're peeing out all these toxic herbs they're taking, which are going to color their urine.
And from what I was told was, in correction, somebody said, well, it's not really the color of the urine he talks about. It's like if you leave it sitting in a glass on your table, it's what rises to the top that should be colorful. It shouldn't be clear. And I don't know the difference of that. I never quite understood. But
yeah, no, I think he's talking about sediment that actually sinks to the bottom.
Yeah, and he's saying the sediment that sinks to the bottom, he's saying it should be there. If it's not there, it's...
Right. No, he's wrong about that. I mean, there shouldn't be any visible sediment. But again, I mean, his clients, customers, whatever, followers are taking these toxic herbs. Herbs are toxic substances that suppress symptoms. So they're taking these toxic herbs, which the body then has to get rid of. And again, I mean, the more dehydrated, people say, oh, look, when I dry fast, I filter better. No, you don't. It looks like there's more sediment because there's less liquid, because you're dehydrated.
Sure.
But that's taxing your kidneys. All the people that are dead from dry fasting, dozens of people died from dry fasting so far in the last 10 years or so. They die because their kidneys shut down, because being dehydrated is damaging to the kidneys. So your urine should be clear to very light color. Now, when you're fasting, you're detoxing more heavily. Even if you're getting enough water, it will often have some color to it, and that's fine. But on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't need to have much color. It's important, though, to say something else, because 10 or 15 years ago, you might remember Durian Ryder.
Yeah.
He was telling people that your clear urine means you're hydrated, right? You want clear urine? Guzzle a liter of water right now. It's going to run right through your body. You're going to pee it right out. It's going to be clear because it's just the water you just drank. So if you're sipping water slowly, no more than 500 milliliters per hour. Now, this bottle was probably half full when I got here almost 2 hours ago. So I'm drinking at a much slower pace than that. But you could drink this much in 1 hour if you sip it slowly. That would take pretty much all your time, right? But which is when people are fasting, they don't have anything else they need to do. They should be resting. They can do that. If you're sipping that slowly, no problem. But if clear urine doesn't mean you're hydrated, it just might mean you're just peeing out what you took in.
Okay, well, something we didn't discuss today or get into today is the Bible. And we're not going to, for sake of time, but maybe another time. But
Sure.
The Bible talks all about fasting.
Right.
And it's listed in there many times. And there's some great information. And if somebody's interested in just, like he's saying, the way we're created and being in tune with nature, not only the animals fast when they're sick, but it's written right there in the Word of God to fast at certain times. And I'll tell you from a prayer standpoint, Prayer and fasting in combination definitely makes those prayers stronger. I know that as a fact. Now, so we'll talk about this in another episode maybe about the fasting in the Bible. Now, in closing, I do want to say that I'm going to put all of Loren's information below, and I'm really excited about this topic because I think people just they overeat. Absolutely. They overeat too much, and anything to do with eating less and letting the body do what it was designed to do and not interfering with it is great. And the greatest way to do that is to take a break and let your body to do what it was designed to do. In closing, is there anything you want to say to the audience?
Well, thank you. Yeah. So first of all, I agree with everything you just said. I'd like to quickly share 2 new programs because for all these years, 30 years, I've been working with people primarily on therapeutic fasts of 21 days and more. I'm well aware that most people out there hear 21 days and they'll think, that's insane, I'm never going to do that. And so we recently created a new program called the Fasting Reset. It's a 4-week online program with me with 7 days of fasting. And so it's a huge education. 3 weeks are just education. 1 week is fasting. There's 13 live calls with me during the program, Zoom calls. There's a lot of videos. My girlfriend was here this summer for five weeks or more, and we recorded, I think, 75 videos for the program. So there's a lot of education there. It's fantastic. We've had amazing responses from the first cohort. We ran one cohort in October. We'll do the next one probably sometime in February. And that program is incredible for someone who isn't ready to go 21 days, but wants to have the experience and dip their toe in the water. You want to check out the Fasting Reset. If you contact me from this, and again, Paul will give you my information, and you say that you heard me here, I'll still give you the founder's rate because we offered a founder's rate for the first cohort. That's gone, and the price is now quite a bit higher than it was at the time. We're going to start advertising. The other thing I want to mention is we just kicked off 3 weeks ago, our online community. It's a monthly membership program. I was live every week for more than 10 years. Started off on Facebook and then went to YouTube and Instagram. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm now live every week in the community, and it's a Zoom call. So you're watching me on YouTube, you can type something, but there's no interaction. This is Zoom, we can interact, you can talk to me, I can answer your questions, you can say, no, that's not exactly what I meant. It's amazing, and we're getting, again, great feedback so far. Some people, I think, have been hesitant because I've had people say, yeah, but I'm not going to fast. I'm like, it's not about fasting. It's about optimizing your health. Remember, guys, I'm 39 years without a day sick. I guarantee my clients the highest level of health because fasting is one thing, but afterward you have to know what else to do, how to work out, about sleep, about sunlight, and certainly about diet, which is critically important. You want us to take a sip?
No, thank you. I'm
good. Probably mostly spit now. So there's that program. And that program, too, has a founder's rate, which is set to go up on the 1st of January. So if you get in now, I mean, it's a little bit more than 25% of what it's going to cost later on, and you maintain the founder's rate forever as long as you stay in. I'm live every week. There's a new video every week just for the community. Sylvie is managing the online forum. She's interviewing experts and other people. I mean, it's an amazing program, and it's very affordable if you get in now.
And they could find that information on your website.
Well, the new website, which is fasttorise.com.
And that's up now?
That website is up. The only thing not up yet is the therapeutic fasting information. So the Fasting Reset is there, and the community is there.
Okay, let's say it again.
It's www.fasttorise, R-I-S-E, fasttorise.com.
Okay, everybody.
You can give it here.
Get there. I'll put it at the link below as well. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you so much for coming on out.
Hey, Paul, great to see you.
Thank you. Always great to see you,
I'll
man.
see you in a few days.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for your comments and questions below. Until then, have a great day and a great raw life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.